All right. Yeah, thanks for joining, everyone. Today we're going to be continuing our discussion about the uh, V2 token standards. We had a great discussion 2 weeks ago where we covered most of the open issues with the proposal, but we didn't really reach a decision on most of them. I posted I posted the notes from what we talked about in the flip for the non-fungible token standard. Uh, some of the points apply to both the non-fungible token and fungible token standard proposals, but most of them um, or a lot of them only apply to non-fungible token standards. So I'm just kind of centering the discussion there for now at least. So we're gonna I basically just took these notes and I copied them into today's agenda because we want to keep talking about some of those. And I added a couple other pieces that we could potentially get to if we have time after talking about the other issues. So in case you're new to these discussions, the token standards are this proposals for improving the token standards. We're proposing some pretty big changes since stable cadence is coming up, and we want to have a good foundation for the token standards in the future. A couple of the big changes is encapsulating most of the functionality of vaults in the resources instead of in the contracts. We're introducing a lot of other small changes, like using functions instead of fields, and a lot of other small things that we've covered this in previous videos. So if you want to learn more, definitely recommend going to the full YouTube channel and checking out some recordings from our previous meetings. Additionally, there's a blog post that was a forum post that was the initial proposal. A lot of the things that are laid out in this forum post have changed since we posted it, but it's still a really good resource for just learning about like the reasoning behind a lot of our proposals. And there's some really good discussion in that post, in that forum post, with a lot of people making a lot of good points about the standards. Additionally, we have two open flips in the flips repo, one for the fungible token standard and one for the non-fungible token standard. So yeah, I just want to get right into the discussion. So the first thing I wanted to talk about was the removal of nested type requirements. I'm glad that Bjarte, that you showed up, because I know this was something that you were concerned about. And just to kind of give people a quick overview, we want to remove nested type requirements from the language. A nested type requirement is basically we use it in the token standards currently, where we have this like contract interface for the fungible token, and we require that all fungible tokens implement this vault resource, and we do that by defining this vault resource in the contract interface, so that in an implementation of the fungible token, they also have to define a resource with the name vault. The only place that, as far as we're aware, the only place this is used is in the token standards. There aren't very many other, I haven't seen any other contracts that use this feature, and it creates some weird issues with like how we like use types in the language, and can be kind of confusing. So in the new standard, we want to get rid of that, and we want to make everything just interfaces. So instead of making a Vault resource, we make a Vault resource interface so that every implementation, and this is the V2 implementation, can define their Vault resource that implements the fungible token.vault interface. We like this because it allows us to allows users to define multiple tokens in a single contract in case there's a kind of a variety of tokens in like a specific smart contract or game, and allows contracts to define a fungible token or a non-fungible token like in any contract easily without having to implement the entire like fungible token or non-fungible token contract interface. But there have been a few community members who have expressed some concern with that change, that saying that they don't think it's necessary and that it's going to be a little bit of a heavy lift to do the upgrade for this. So I'm curious to hear what you think about that, specifically Bjarte, because you were the one, I think you were the first one to mention it, but anybody else who might not want to remove this feature, yeah, let me know.
So my concern is basically, I think it's good to remove the feature, but I'm not sure if it's good to recommend people to have multiple things in a contract, so multiple vaults or NFTs when we get to that. I think it's better to just have them simple, to recommend to have them. If you need another one, you can just create another contract if it's not a lot of work. But for me, it's kind of, I want to see everything fit together in a proposal that compiles. So I played around a little bit earlier today, and right now it's not possible to get what we are trying to do to compile because we need interface inheritance and events and interfaces. So I'm not sure when is the right time to discuss these things compared to when we actually have something, when we actually have all the prerequisites ready to do it, if you get me.
Well, some of the prerequisites are part of stable cadence. So we won't be able to like test these on like testnet until like stable cadence, but there is the stable cadence like emulator and like cadence releases that we can use to test these when those features are ready. But currently we're basically just like we're writing the code for the interfaces the way that we want it to look, and we haven't actually started doing any real like testing with the code because, like you said, it doesn't we currently can't actually deploy the contracts because they're using some of these features we don't have yet. Yeah, I would like to get the contract in like a place where we want it to be, so that we can kind of see like what our goals are for this instead of like doing actual like testing with it for now. But as soon as those features are ready, then we'll be able to like start testing it more with the stable cadence feature branch. And yeah, thank you for clarifying your your position on the nested type requirements. I don't think, at least my intention was never to tell people that they should define multiple tokens per contract. I think the goal was just to give people the option. I think that generally we would still expect most developers to only define one token per contract, because usually that's what most developers want anyway. That they're not like trying to define do a complex like ecosystem or anything. But I think it is nice to still have the option, and also making the changes to like the code changes to be compatible with this won't be, at least as far as as I can tell from kind of my exploration, is not too onerous. So it shouldn't be too hard for existing developers to update their smart contracts to be compatible. So, but yeah, that's good to hear that you still support removing the feature. Is there anybody else who has any thoughts about this, about removing these nested type requirements and allowing multiple tokens per contract before we move on? No. Okay, cool. So yeah, so it sounds like we can, I mean, we can kind of tentatively resolve this. We'll still kind of like leave it open in case anybody else comes in and has some concerns with it in the future. But yeah, that's good. So next we wanted to talk about using UUID. We had a pretty long discussion about this last week with some, yeah, that we didn't quite resolve. So basically the issue is that currently most NFT projects use a kind of like custom ID system for their projects, where there's a field in the contract that tracks like IDs for NFTs, and the NFTs are assigned like a project specific ID. And we introduced the UUID field on resources after like a few months after we deployed the original standard and original NFT smart contracts. And UUID is a unique identifier for resources on Flow. And a lot of projects have switched over to start using UUIDs. And ideally, every project would use UUIDs, because in that case, every resource on Flow or every NFT on Flow would have a unique identifier, so that if they were in like third party like smart contracts like marketplaces and things like that, we could easily identify them without having to like also give like a type also. So we want to, with the new standard, we want to kind of encourage people to use UUIDs from now on. But the problem is with the upgrade, we can't just assume that every single project uses UUIDs, because a lot of them are still using this old project specific ID system. So we're trying to figure out what we can do to either continue to support the old system, or like provide some sort of like migration path for old projects. And there's like some apps like Floaty, Austin was talking about this last time, that like they have like the smart contracts that use the old IDs, and even if we like upgraded the smart contract to use, or the standard to encourage the use of UUIDs, their contract is still keyed on this old ID system. So still having to work with that existing state is something that we have to figure out. But there were some suggestions about like creating like a temporary collection that uses UUIDs, and then one that uses like old IDs, or having like, here we mentioned the standard collection could have like multiple withdraw methods, one that withdraws using the UUID and one that withdraws using the type or the old ID, so that projects can kind of like migrate to like a UUID system instead of having to use the old system, or potentially have two different collections, one collection that uses UUIDs and one collection that uses the old IDs as another way to migrate. So that's kind of like what we landed on last week. I mean, we still, the problem is still super complicated, and it's still kind of daunting. So does anybody here have any thoughts on UUIDs to talk about today? Yeah. Same.
Maybe we can provide some function, something like get UDID, which you give type and ID, and it returns the UDID. So we can make this before the Spark, we can index and put on chain, and the old contracts can update to use this get UDID function somehow.
You said we could provide it before the stable cannons?
Yes, like we can index before the Spark and put on chain, maybe on service account or like some other account, and publish this function, like not like native Cadence function, like but some contract.
Yeah.
So they can use this and they can check if they have, like we can put all the resources created till the Spark, and then later we don't support this. Or maybe we can make it somehow like, nah, it's hard to, I was thinking maybe on the Flow Go side, we can make some kind of a lookup table, but.
Yeah. Yeah, go ahead, BRT.
Yeah, so, but don't we need it the other way too? Because if you have like a Top Shot collection where the ID that it has, the own keys or own NFTs is indexed on the old ID, not on the new ID.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we need it the other way too, Dennis. So from UUID to type and ID, if you get me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because if you want to borrow something using a UUID, but you happen to have yours keyed to the old ID, you need to call this function, and then you need to assert the type is the correct type, and then you can borrow using the UUID, or using the ID that you get back. So that could actually work. But you still need this mapping layer that you're talking about. But I just think you need it the other way.
Other way, maybe contracts can like migrate the data. I don't know if it will be possible, but when they have keys, they can look at the keys and they can borrow and like make their like own mapping. But actually, it would be nice to have, of course, some. I think Deet had some idea about this borrowing resource by ID. By UDID.
Yeah, that would be useful. Yeah, with the migration thing is something that like it would be really nice. Like ideally, like I can see a world where we provide this like get UUID method and have like multiple like collection types for each project, and each project could migrate or each user, I guess, like could migrate like their NFTs from the old ID system to the new UUID collection. The problem is that like we can't. It's really hard to get users to do anything on their own, and so then yeah, I don't know. To me that just seems like a really difficult just like operational like challenge to get everyone to migrate to the new system. But I mean that might be if we truly do want this UUID to be standard, that might be what we kind of have to ask people to do. Or I mean, or we could just, I mean, the other option is just to kind of like to still make it kind of ambiguous and just say like each, like I think like right now we kind of have it as oh, that's fungible token. We do have it that like NFTs just have like a get ID method, and this is the default implementation. It returns the UUID, but projects could still return an old ID, and we could just like just say that projects can figure it out like on their own. I mean, maybe we could add like another function that says like that for a project to say like it uses UUID or it doesn't use UUID. So you know that when you're calling this getID method on an NFT, you know if it's the UUID or not the UUID. That could at least like allow projects to specify which system they're using, so there aren't any like there isn't a misunderstanding. But it is a little awkward. I'm gonna write that down. So, yeah, I think there probably is some combination of these. Yeah, we've got a few proposals here that like potentially having multiple collections, having this get UUID method, the method that allows NFTs to specify if they're using UUID. There's probably some combination of those that we could land on to make this upgrade as easy as possible. Because yeah, like I said, I don't see us being able to do the upgrade, provide the migration path, and then just assume everyone is using UUID. Because that is just too it's too much to ask to expect every user to migrate their own collections to use UUID. So there has to be some sort of kind of like middle ground that supports both. I'm gonna read Gio's comment right now. Oh, if we include an event in the get UUID method that includes both the ID and UUID, so off-chain indexers can map both to each other. That's a good idea. Yeah, because the other big thing is the event, the off-chain like ownership indexing for a lot of these projects is uses the old ID system. And another part of this proposal was introducing like standard events that are emitted by interfaces. And those events, since they'd be emitted by the actual like non-fungible token receiver interface or something like that, they would have to use UUID because we would want to make those standardized. And that could confuse the off-chain indexers if they were using the old IDs. I mean, granted, the old events, if assuming the developers didn't remove them, would still be there, so they could still use those old events if needed. But I do like this idea of making the contract able to emit an event that includes the old ID and the new UUID. So the off-chain indexers can get up to speed with the new system. So that might be worth doing. And additionally, the deposit withdraw events. We do have that actually. I forgot about that. Yeah, currently we've updated the withdrawal and deposit events to include ID and UUID. So I guess that would work. That would also work to include both. In a lot of cases, or in some cases, they would be the same if they're both the UUID. You okay?
Yeah, so my problem with emitting an event in a get function is that very often that will be called from a script, and then you just discard the events, right?
Yeah.
But they are there for an indexer to see that you have deposit and withdraw events, so you can actually map here ID and type to UUID if you want to. And for existing things, it's also totally possible to get. You can just run a script on the block height of the event and just borrow it and get the UUID. It's just work, right, to create that mapping if you want to.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that's a good point. Yeah. All right, I think we got some good ideas. I want to play around with this a little bit, and I'm gonna update the proposal to include some of these things. We can kind of get an idea for what this might look like. Design.
Maybe it is like little different idea, but maybe we can move the UDIDs of old NFT items or like FT items and change them on chain, like change the UDIDs to fit a function. Like now, like we have sequential UDIDs, but we don't have the sequential. Like for example, like let's say we are now like 100 million. We can start to map them from like 200 million and give them, for example, start with like Top Shot. With the type, we give them ID plus 2 million, all NFTs UDID. So we will not need a big lookup table, but like we will have like some type, and this type is starting from this UDID kind of function. So UDID will be type start index plus some ID.
So you're saying we would
make a function like this, like for example, Top Shot start UDID plus ID.
Okay, so you're saying you're suggesting to actually change what NF resources UUIDs are on chain to be like namespaced by type?
Yeah, something like this. So it's like if we make this, we can still keep their also old UUIDs because like they will not be in use, but these resources will have some kind of like double UUIDs. like we will like invent something else. Like we will not call it like UUID, but like in Cadence, we will have another ID.
Yeah.
Which we will be indexing from now on with type somehow.
Yeah.
Like little complicated, but
yeah, I don't know. I don't know if that would work. I mean, and also like that, does that really solve like a significant problem? I mean, it feels like that creates more work, but like we're still having to there's still, it doesn't solve this like this kind of like migration issue of like needing to fix like or migrate from the old system or at least support the old system with the new system. It just kind of changes how we define UUIDs or how we create UUIDs.
Like it is like, think like this. For example, like they're like NFTs. They have IDs. We will have some kind of like maybe change their IDs instead of changing their UUIDs. So maybe in this way, it will be like more compatible, because like we have to say that, like, for example, there are like stuff indexed with ID already on chain.
Mm-hmm.
But if we change the ID of the NFT to its UUID, some kind of migrate, like we are covering this, like we are only have problem with off-chain content. On-chain will be like reliable.
But that's the problem then, is very many solutions rely on those IDs in off-chain solutions.
But off-chain ones will use this like lookup function still.
Yeah.
I am trying to solve the problem of like from going UUID to ID. It is the like a little bit complicated.
Yeah, I'm still, it's still not clear to me. Sorry, just like what, yeah, what this solves. Maybe I'm just a little confused about your proposal. Yeah.
Actually, it's how to say. I am just trying to solve that, like in the chain, everything will be reliable and everything will be like working as intended. But off-chain stuff, we will give some utility functions or maybe off-chain services. Like we will not put this like get UUID function on the chain, but then we can move it to off-chain if they are like storing off-chain people.
Yeah.
Like making on-chain is somehow this migration without problem should be the like most important.
Yeah, maybe we need to come back to this another time, or maybe we can talk on Discord or something, so I can get kind of like we can get like a written version of your proposal here, because sorry, yeah, I'm still kind of confused about it. So but yeah, I kind of want to move on. Sorry about that. I kind of want to get to some of the other points. So yeah, so talking about, does anybody else have any other things they want to say about UUID before we move on? No. Okay. Yeah, I think I do kind of like what we talked about today, and I at least I'm starting to see how this might work. So I'll definitely have some more stuff to show next time. So next I want to talk about just briefly about events emitted from interfaces. Dennis, I know you said you were working on a flip for this. We talked about this briefly last time, and it seemed like everyone was pretty in support of this. So how's that coming along? Do you need help with that at all?
I finished half of it. I think like till weekend I will post it for sure.
Okay. All right. That sounds good. Yeah, we'll definitely yeah, make sure you share that around on Discord, and we'll try to give reviews on that as soon as possible. But yeah, I think that one's pretty universally supported, unless anybody else has any things they wanted to say about it here. All right, next, so standard events. So this kind of follows on from events emitted from interfaces. So we said that we want to be able to define events in interfaces and emit those events like directly from like the non-fungible token dot collection interface. We're still working on figuring out what we want those events to contain. So I think we're all basically in agreement that we want the ID, we want the UUID, we want the owner, like the from address, like for the withdrawal events specifically, and we want the type of the NFT that's being withdrawn. I'm pretty sure everyone wants that, so we don't really need to discuss those or not. But I guess there is, I don't remember who suggested it, but using type as like the type as the argument type, or the type identifier as like a string for this event. Was that Bjarte? Was that you who was mentioning that?
That was me, but I actually think that the type is serialized as the identifier now, but I don't remember. But
Sorry, can you say it again?
Sorry, I have a little bit of bad network here, but I believe that a type is serialized as an identifier in the event, regardless now, but I'm not sure. I just think an event is very often read by off-chain systems. You can't get events on-chain. And how much value is it to have the type? I mean, it's good to have the type on chain because then you know it's a type, but off chain you need the identifier to make sense of it, really.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I really want events to be human readable, and if an event is serialized as something that doesn't say what the identifier is, it's not readable. But I'm not. If anybody has any contracts that emit types in events, it's fine. We use identifiers for almost anything, but if anybody has it, we can always just look on chain and see what they are actually emitted as. But
yeah, that's a good point. I can yeah, I can do some research to figure out what that actually is emitted as, because I don't know off the top of my head either. And we can figure out what would be best there. Yeah, so next we wanted to talk about potentially including metadata views in events. I know that Bjarte, you said that you thought it would be useful to include metadata views, but there was some pushback about just kind of like the cost of that, especially if like metadata views are large. And I think, I don't know if Austin's here. I think I don't think he's here, but he definitely had some pushback there. But I'm curious to hear your thoughts on including metadata views in events.
sorry, was that me?
Yeah,
because my network is flaky, so I keep dropping it. Yeah, so I mean, I like rich events, but I can definitely see where it's a problem. So I'm willing to go back on this and just say we don't do it if it's a concern at all.
Yeah.
Really, and if we were to have anything, I would actually advocate for just the name and the thumbnail, so the URL to the image. It's just basically to make it easier for a user to just, when you just look at an event, to see what did you get, for instance, in the deposit. But again, I can also see the security issues, and I believe that maybe I just have to make a pass on that and just say, look, I can see where it's too complex.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good point. Dennis?
I think this can be also kind of third-party service. Like for example, you connect to some access node, and these events you're getting with some kind of like more rich events. They are like storage indexing. And for example, if you are like emitting some like deposit event with some ID or UUID, then they are also showing you with this event payload the view of the NFT.
That's a good point. Yeah, I think that definitely gets to the yeah, kind of the goal that we've always kind of had for access nodes, that like access nodes can be like a business, and this is a perfect example where they could monitor the basic views and then create like this kind of like off-chain script enhanced views to actually show to their users. So I like that. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, I think there may still be some value in including like a really basic view, like the name or something, and that can still be gotten from like the collection, or the collection interface. So I might still look at that, explore some of those smaller views, see how that could work, but maybe for now we can just get rid of the views from those standard events, since this access node idea is definitely possible. All right, that's good. Any other thoughts on events for anyone? Nope. Okay, so I'm gonna skip this upgrade issues point for now, and want to briefly mention that that one of the features that we wanted for this proposal is interface inheritance, because we have like the usual like provider, receiver, and like public interfaces for our collections and our vaults. But now that the collection is an interface itself, we want that interface to be able to inherit from those other more specific interfaces. But that feature is currently not available in Cadence right now. So there's an open flip for interface inheritance that is currently still under discussion. There's some unanswered questions about how this would work with default implementations. So I just kind of wanted to give that a quick plug for anybody who has the time to take a look at it and provide some feedback, because we've had a hard time kind of resolving some of those questions, and it'd be great to get this feature in so we can include this in the standard. But we're not going to get into the details of that in this meeting, because that would be more for the Cadence working group. But I'm going to respond to that again soon. I want to try to get a Cadence working group started again for that, so we can get that moving. And then, yeah, then the last point here that I wanted to discuss was how we can provide a standard for collections that store like a bunch of NFTs. So there's been problems with the past that like this single dictionary storing NFTs is not really scalable, because you have to load the whole dictionary when you're accessing it. And when accounts have millions of NFTs, it doesn't scale very well. And Bjarte suggested having like a collection that could store, or standard that could store like NFTs in different storage paths if they get too large. And I wanted to start exploring what we could do for this, like maybe creating adding this as some sort of like standard, where like a collection could like have a dynamic system that like when a certain, or like it creates like a sub collection in a storage path in the account where it's stored, and then like when that collection gets big enough, like it can allocate like a new collection to like store like new NFTs in from then on, and it can route like the deposit and the withdrawal calls to those collections. Does anybody have any thoughts on that, or if we think that's maybe too complicated, or what? Mirate?
Yeah, so what I think is important here, it's kind of related to what you just said, but I think it's more fundamental, so we need to talk about that first. And that is that with the new deposit events and things we have, I think it's very important that an NFT can tell you where it is stored. So what collection it is in, because imagine you write an indexer and you want to know where you have a deposit event, and when you want to know based on this type, where can I get it? Well, you don't know the type, right? You have no idea of what that, I mean, you know the type of the NFT, but you don't know the path of where it's stored. Like the deposit and withdrawal events doesn't know about path.
Oh yeah.
So if you have one NFT that you can store in two different collections, how do you know where to look, right? To get it, you know the type, you know the ID, but you don't know the paths. Do you then have to start to iterate over things? So I personally, I think an NFT should own where it can be stored. So what collection implementation it's stored in, if you got me. And
So-
yeah.
So, well, I mean, isn't that we already have that with the view that like the collection view that NFTs can specify like what the standard paths and like collections are?
Yeah, but yeah, we kind of do. So if we could use those, then that's a good idea, right? Where an NFT type, not the collection, but an NFT type, returns its collection data and says, look, I'm stored here, right?
Yeah.
This is where you can get me, if you got me. I like that. I think that's good. But also, I mean, I like simple things. So if I create an NFT, I would very much like to have that be very simple, not have to write lots of code. So I really love your basic NFT example, Josh, because it was so simple. It only contains the bare minimum you have to do. But then the question is, how do you store that? What kind of collection do you store it in? And so personally, I think that we can reuse code across, the collection code across different NFTs. It's a good idea, but not where you store it, right? So if you create a new NFT collection that is a basic NFT collection, and you say this basic collection can store basic NFTs,
Mhm.
or it can store example NFTs, but the paths of those will be different,
Mhm.
right? The path where you store them will be this is a basic NFT collection for basic NFTs, or this is a basic NFT collection for basic NFTs, because that way, I mean, 90% of NFT collections out there really don't need a different collection. They just need the borrow and withdraw and get views and all the standard stuff, right? They don't need anything else. And if they do, they can create their own
Yeah.
and use that instead. So if you need, if you need a sharded one, if you need one with batch withdrawal, if you need one where you have your own collection public because you need some new functions, you can always just create your own. But just having the ability to create an NFT very easily, where you'd actually have your own path so that you work very well with storage iteration, but also you don't have to re-implement the collection code everywhere, to copy paste everything, because it just kills productivity, right? To have to type hundreds of lines of code that is the same.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't. How do? I mean, kind of the point of allowing like anyone to define an NFT like just with a resource or resource interface or whatever, is that it can be stored anywhere. Like you can like you can't have an NFT say where it can be stored because it can be stored in any resource that stores
Yeah.
that stores an NFT.
Yeah, that's also very interesting because parallel to this, we have to talk about composable NFTs and an event standard for those, right? Because if you want indexes to know where things are, you have to have some standard path like deposit withdraw kind of pattern for composable NFTs as well. Flowchart has equip and unequip already. Maybe we could use those. I don't know, but
well, I mean,
I think it's
like the current collection interface could potentially it could potentially be a standard for any resource that stores NFTs. Because like even if it's not like a standard like collection, like you could, I don't know, you could in theory have a, like, I guess I just to use like the marketplace as an example, you could have a marketplace like implement this collection interface, and it would be able to show its default paths, the NFT types that it supports in its marketplace, the withdraw. I mean, withdrawn deposits is a little bit awkward because like you wouldn't use those for the marketplace like normally because they usually need like a price information, but like I guess withdraw you could because that's just canceling a sale. So this could, I mean, we could kind of make this into a standard like composable, NFTs interface that can be used across any type that stores NFTs. Even other NFTs could potentially like implement the collection interface if they wanted to. If it was an NFT that can own other NFTs. So
if we could have interfaces implement interfaces, I actually think we should create something that is simpler that one also implements. Right, that is so the bare minimum you need, if you got me, because that one has lots of things you might not always want, if you got me.
sorry, can you repeat that? I think I missed a couple of words in there.
Yes. So if we can have interfaces implement interfaces, we should just create an interface that has the bare minimum we need and not all the things we don't need. Let's say, for instance, I want to have a sub collection, but I don't want anybody to put things in there. So I don't want the deposit method to be like the deposit public because I want to gate that, right?
Yeah.
So, as soon as we have interfaces implement interfaces, things becomes a lot richer. We can do very, very many cool things and have granular interfaces.
Yeah.
But we have to solve like inheritance and the diamond problem and all that. But
Yeah.
I guess they're talking in the other flick, right?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that's a good idea. I think I might explore that a little bit too, with the standard. I kind of like that idea of making this composable NFT interface. Yes.
I mean, Kate is here as well, I see. So me and Lane and Kate started talking a little bit about this composable things. So I've spoken to Luke about it as well because Flowchart has composable NFTs and Doodles have composable NFTs, and it would be really cool if you could have some sort of events pattern or whatever on these, so that it's actually possible to make sense of them on a generic level. If you get me.
Yeah.
I'm not sure of any other major projects that are still alive that does that, but those are the two I can think about. Maybe Basic Beast does it as well. I don't know, but we can always just start to talk about. My end goal is basically,
that's good.
if I have an indexer that indexes NFTs, I want to be able to know where they are even if they are in another NFT, I want to be able to know where they are. If I have an event for a deposit event, I want to know where can I go on chain to fetch more information about that one. Like if we want to do the Axis node service that Dennis had, if I then have to start to guess on what over your paths it's in, it's actually then it becomes really hard.
Mhm. Yeah.
So I'm not really sure. Are there any good reasons why an NFT can be stored in multiple collection implementations? Or should it be like this NFT can only be stored here, like in this kind of collection, if you got me?
I mean, you can't really enforce that. Like anyone can say that they accept like a resource that implements the non-fungible token or the NFT interface. So even if an NFT says it says it wants to be stored in a specific collection type, it's like that you can't enforce that it actually is. And that's what makes that's composability. I mean, that's why we use blockchain is so that you can store these anywhere.
Yeah. We just have to make sense of them, because if regulations tighten up and suddenly you have to if you have an expensive NFT that is somewhere and you don't know where it is anymore, it can get troublesome, right?
That's
because and especially so with attachments, right? Even more so with attachments, since you can't query the chain for what attachments you have to know what to look for. But it's out of scope for this problem, but it's another problem that I really would like to solve, to be able to see what attachment do I actually have. So let's take a wearable, a Doodles, for instance. Right now, it only resides in the wearables collection, but very soon it will reside on a Doodle. So one Doodle owns a wearable. But what if that Doodle then is an attachment on a Flowchart, for instance? So you have a companion. If somebody makes that contract, makes that attachment, and puts a Doodle into a Flowchart, and you don't know where it is anymore, an indexer doesn't know where it is anymore, and that could be troublesome, if you got me. We just need some sort of, we just need events, basically, to be rich enough to know where things are. Where they are pushed. I've advocated for events when things are linked and unlinked and saved and destroyed as well, because there are tricks you can do today where you just load a vault and you save it to another path, right? And there's no event emitted, but you actually move tokens. And we saw attacks on the matrix market vulnerability where they did that. And that there will only be more of that, I think, if we don't fix it. But again, I'm out of scope for the meeting, but
that's fine. I think that's definitely a good point. And we can talk with the Cadence team and bump the rich events conversation a little bit to get talking about this soon. Cool. Well, I think we can probably wrap it up unless anybody else has any last comments. Nope. I feel like this was a really good chat. Definitely we made a few decisions that I like, and there's a lot more flexibility. There's a lot of things that I want to work on now to kind of explore some of these things we talked about today. So thanks everyone for joining. I'm going to post these notes in the Flip again, and then we're going to schedule another chat, sometime in the next 2 or 3 weeks, so we can continue talking about some of these. So thanks for joining, and we'll see you next time. Bye.